Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Fallacious Truth. I've got several videos here, but I'm not sure if we're going to get to them all. I've got two videos in particular, both regarding the same topic. Men and women thinking that it should be required for men to get vasectomies because women think that it makes more sense to them rather than the woman to take birth control. First up, we have this turtleneck guy again, and here is what he has to say.
Women can physically only produce one baby a year, whereas a man can get an indefinite amount of women pregnant in a year. So why is it all the pressure on birth control is on women, when the issue obviously lies with men?
So, as he says, women can physically only produce one baby a year. Okay, I can't do that the entire time. Women can only physically produce one baby a year, whereas a man can get an indefinite amount of people pregnant in a year. So why is it that all the pressure for birth control is on women, when the issue is obviously with men? Now, in the second video here, we have a woman painting her walls, and in the background we have the audio. Presumably these are questions that are asked, and these are answers that she thinks would be the correct ones. Let's take a listen here.
Abortions are bad. Cool, and statistically speaking, the best way to end abortions, without improving sex education, giving birth control and Plan B pills freely, etc., is to perform mandatory vasectomies. That can be reversed as soon as you get married. What? What makes more sense? Take the bullets out of the gun? Or shoot freely and hope to dear God that everybody you shoot at has a bulletproof vest? A woman can only endure pregnancy once in a 9-month period. But if a man is having unprotected sex every day for 9 months, with one person a day, he can cause up to 270 pregnancies. You do the math. Statistically, it makes more sense to require vasectomies. And for the most part, they're reversible. But it's my body, my choice. Yeah, you've made it apparent that you actually don't believe that. Well then, sometimes vasectomies aren't reversible. The effects of pregnancy aren't reversible either. Plus, adoption is an option.
To kind of recap that, let's go through it before we analyze it. Abortions are bad.
Cool. And statistically speaking, the best way to end abortions without improving sex education, giving birth control, or Plan B pills freely, etc., is to perform mandatory vasectomies. That can be reversed as soon as you get married.
What?
What makes more sense? Take the bullets out of the gun, or shoot freely and hope to dear God that everyone is wearing a bulletproof vest? A woman can only endure pregnancy once in a 9-month period. But if a man is having unprotected sex every day for 9 months with multiple people, he can cause up to 270 pregnancies. You do the math. Statistically, it makes more sense to require vasectomies, and for the most part, they are reversible.
But it's my body, my choice.
Yeah, you made it apparent that you don't actually believe that.
Well, sometimes vasectomies aren't reversible.
Well, the effects of pregnancy aren't reversible either.
Adoption is an option. And that's where it ends there. Now, if you want to take what they said here at face value, to the historically uneducated and the general masses, yeah, it might make sense. It's really not until we dive deeper into this that we find the fatal flaws in this line of thinking. First off, we need to address the white elephant in the room of the failed analogy of the gun and the bullets that she used. The entire premise of both this woman and turtleneck guy is that their point is the gun in the analogy, which is the man, can have sex X number of times with however many women he wants and potentially get them all pregnant.
As I recall, it was every potential man for himself.
Well, yes, I mean, at its core, this is very true, especially if you choose to ignore the multitude of variables. But here's the fundamental flaw, though. Women ultimately are the gatekeepers to sex. Women choose to allow a man to sleep with them. Or they choose not to.
Denied.
Ultimately, the woman is in charge of what she allows into her body, not the man. There are almost 40 forms of birth control, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. It's not the man causing the pregnancies that are unwanted, it's ultimately you, women, who are. No child in the year 2022 is born that the woman doesn't want to be born, period. To say otherwise is intellectually dishonest. If you don't want to get pregnant, don't take the necessary steps that result in pregnancy. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, people are just going to do it anyway, but that's a really terrible argument. Because once you apply that to here, it can be applied to a whole host of other things that you really don't want to apply it to. This is a society in decline that we're living in right here. It's that simple. You scream from the mountaintops, my body, my choice. But when said phrase is applied right back at you, it's suddenly justifiable to you that the phrase is no longer valid. Well, which is it, ladies? You can't have it both ways, even though society says you can. One of the other parts of this is it's only a handful of men relative to the entire male population that's having sex with a majority of the women. Are you proposing to force vasectomies on 100% of the male population for the 5 to 10%, statistically speaking, that are having sex frequently and with different women? That's about as ridiculous as using rape and incest to justify all abortions, when over 99.25% of abortions are done out of convenience, and combined, under 1% of abortions are done because of rape and incest. I digress, though. Ladies, in the last century, you got something that up until now wasn't possible. You achieved, quite honestly, arguably the most significant form of liberation, and that is pregnancy liberation. In fact, you are so liberated with regards to pregnancy. As I said earlier, no child is born today is born without your expressed consent, without your expressed choice, without you wanting that specific child. You know, birth control gave you the ability to choose whether or not you wanted to have a child. And I'm not going to turn this into a baby deletion video with regards to my views of it. You have the ultimate choice to kill what's inside you, whether you consider it a clump of cells or a baby. At no other time in history was this possible like this. This, however, had unintended consequences. You see, at least historically speaking, I could find no one else in history, or no one at all in history, that said, hey, 50 plus years down the road, this is going to cause women to become even more promiscuous than they are today. And now, because of the so-called liberation of women, they are sleeping with more men more frequently today than in any other time in history. Statistics show that the average woman sleeps with more men more often, far more than the average man sleeps with one woman or many women. So in actuality, the onus is on you to keep your legs shut, rather than it is for men to stop turning women into incubators. Men have no legal choice, no legal say, no legal opinion whatsoever when it comes to a child in the womb. That's just another privilege that you as ladies have. More of the liberation you wanted, and now you have it. In fact, you've gone so far with it that men don't really have legal rights after the child is born either. Yet you can force us to have the legal obligation to pay for a child that we didn't choose to have, that we were told couldn't be possible, but well, surprise, surprise, turned out it would be possible. You can even force us to have the legal obligation to pay for a child that isn't ours, that you lie to us and say that is ours.
What? What the f?
And now you have the audacity to state that we as men should be forced to have a vasectomy when we have no legal right to the child inside your body and out? Exactly who do you think you are? That child is 50% of me. If you want to force this upon us men, then we better damn well have a say in what goes on if there's a resulting child, both inside the womb and out. If you want to force this upon us, we should absolutely have a say-so in regards to ending the pregnancy of the fetus or child or whatever you want to call it that we have fathered as well. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, this video can branch off into so many things. I'm trying to keep it on one subject here. This brings up the ultimate and final problem when it comes to this entire subject. It's that women only want responsibility collectively as a whole when they can use men for resources, i.e. the responsibility of children or being a wife for a few years until she decides to sleep around, divorces, then collects a pension from the man, but don't want actual responsibility. And society is slowly but surely absolving them of not only all responsibility, but all consequences of said responsibilities or actions. We aren't talking about something insignificant here. We are talking about another life, Again, I don't care what your view of an unborn fetus or child is, biologically speaking. The only time we don't, at any time anywhere in the animal kingdom, refer to an unborn fetus as a living being is when we are talking about humans. We're talking about one of the most significant consequences to an action that can happen due to a choice. Yes, it does take two to tango. It only takes one, as men have no choice in the matter. And you want it that way, and you've definitely got it. You can't turn around and take our choice away, which you have effectively done, and control us when we have zero say-so or control of any outcome. You women have control before, during, and after pregnancy legally with regards to becoming pregnant or staying pregnant. You don't get the right to absolve yourself of yet another mistake you've made if you've become pregnant, if you don't want to be. You don't get to have the child and force us to pay for you to keep said child when we have zero say-so in the making of it. And lastly, you don't get to force us to do a damn thing when no child here in America is born without the expressed consent and permission, will, and intent of the would-be mother. You know, the long and the short of it is this. If you want to say so with regards to a vasectomy, especially forcing all men to get one, if you think this logically solves the problem of women getting pregnant, which it doesn't, then us men need to have a say-so to the tune of at least 50% of what happens to a child, baby, fetus, whatever your preferred designation of it is, both inside and outside of the womb. And thank you once again for joining me for the Fallacious Truth. I am still steadily working on that series, so hopefully I'll have it, at least the first part of it, within the next few weeks here. Men need to know that there are some things we can do to protect ourselves and mitigate our losses when facing a cheating wife in a divorce. And because of this, I want to make sure I take the proper time on it so I can give the best advice from my personal experience that I can. And if you wouldn't mind liking, subscribing, sharing, I'd really appreciate it. I'm still a brand new channel with only a handful of views, and if this could get shared, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you and take care.